Hey guys, I am here in Avila Beach, California, one of my most favorite cities in probably entire world. It's a beautiful beach town. We're here with My Tesla Adventure guys. If this is the first time you guys are watching this channel, please consider subscribing so you don't miss anything moving forward and become a part of this community. But I just came from Milan, Italy, where this is the first time I visited Europe in like 25 years, and this was the first time I was outside of the Silicon Valley bubble where I see Teslas every day in dozens and dozens, and now I see Model 3 every day, and it's a different world, right? Not because that's where most Teslas are. It's also people are able to afford these cars. We have a pretty decent infrastructure and a supercharger network, so it's very different. Visiting Milan, Italy for the design week where I was covering Byton's European premiere, I got to walk around town and look at the cars and look how people live. And I didn't just go to tourist areas. I went to like regular neighborhoods, and there are a few observations that I have now that I've seen that. I'm definitely going to visit the rest of the Europe in the next 2 years, but I think this is a pretty good glimpse in what is happening and why I think Europe might be a tougher place to adopt electric cars on one hand, but on other hands, I'm actually surprised that they haven't gotten as far ahead of us as they did. So my first observation is this. Now, when I was buying my Tesla back in 2012, myself and I think almost everybody who was buying electric cars, whether Nissan Leaf or Tesla Model S, a big part of our decision was we wanted to help out the environment. That was one of the things that we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that we breathe, better, cleaner air, and so the people around us and animals around us and plants and trees. And I know now it's a little different, but I'm just kind of going back in a day where what kind of got a lot of people started. And I'm realizing that's probably not going to work in Europe because as I walked around Milan, as I sat in cafes and watched people, I realized that, and this may not come as a surprise to a lot of you, but everybody smokes. Everybody in Europe, and especially Milan particularly, smokes. They smoke everywhere. They smoke in each other's faces. They smoke in their families' faces, their kids' faces, their dogs and cats' faces, and you can't really get away from that. So I'm thinking about, can you really appeal to maybe a community where smoking and inhaling smoke is so acceptable with the concept of cleaner air, from cars. And I would assume that smoke from cigarettes would be more damaging and dangerous to your health than even the diesel fumes from the cars around you. So I realized that, maybe that's not a good angle maybe it's not a good angle how this revolution might get started in Europe. But on another hand, I have to say that because most of the cars were very tiny. I mean, like I've seen a lot of smart cars. I've seen a lot of like two-door tiny little cars that are similar to that. I'm realizing that Europe might just be the right place for electric cars because the smaller the car is, obviously, the easier it is to power it with batteries to go further. Right? And I mean, I know even that might be questionable, but it's definitely something that, with Nissan Leaf and BMW i3 and other EVs that I started, obviously was the case. And no better place than Europe to, implement those cars. And, if you think about it, maybe it's not even the range and the size of the battery and size of the car, it's just the pricing, right? I've noticed that even, Milan's supposed to be the capital of fashion and, I relatively well-off city, but I haven't seen that many expensive cars like Mercedes and Audis and so forth. And the ones that I've seen belong to the shuttle services and limo services and so forth. So obviously people can just be buying, Model S and Model X cars like, here in California or Silicon Valley specifically. So maybe, combining those two ideas where people buy or need to buy smaller cars because everything is tiny, the parking spots are tiny, the streets are tiny, combining that with maybe not being able to afford a $100,000 car and having to have a obviously much smaller budget, I'm surprised that electric cars like Chevy Bolt or whatever, Ampere E, Nissan Leaf and other cars haven't taken off as much as you would think. And the range is obviously not as big of a concern there because people don't drive that far there. The city is, their drives are relatively short. You can't get that far in those tiny streets, and they still have traffic there, and everything is just slower. So so these are my observations. And I have to say, on every single point that I've kind of mentioned, I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised that on one hand, the electric car revolution kind of got as far as it did at this point in Europe, but on another hand, that it didn't get far enough. Kind of curious what you guys think as well, especially those of you guys who live in Europe and especially different parts of Europe. Let me know. Am I onto something here, or am I maybe missing something? Is Europe really the place for the electric cars to do better than here in the United States, or maybe they will be behind? Obviously, Tesla with their supercharging network has a big advantage, but over there, Ionity and other networks are catching up, so you should have something relatively usable in the next year or two. That would be, I'd be curious to see how that goes. So yeah, these are my general thoughts, and I'm going to have more of these, and I'm hoping the comment section of this video is going to be just as beneficial as the video itself, because these are just kind of my, immediate thoughts after coming back, and just being in this town here just kind of reminds me a little bit of Europe. So yeah, let me know. Other than that, I will see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.